What are my thoughts on Zilliqa's native token called Zil at the price of hypothetically 25 cents? Even though nothing I say is financial advice, if let's say that Bitcoin dominance drops maybe in a massive way, if let's say we see a fully fledged type of altcoin season, that right there would not surprise me. And even though, again, nothing I say is financial advice, let me explain why I think so. It's because I think Zilliqa, given its reputation, I think it's somewhat actually kind of underrated because oftentimes people think about Solana, they think about, the BNB chain because of course, BNB, Binance, it's just very popular. But even besides all that, Zilliqa sometimes is a little bit underrated. But then in my opinion, I don't find it that bad in terms of fundamentals. In actuality, I am a fan of its fundamentals because Zilliqa is allegedly the world's first ever sharding-based blockchain, right? I mean, why is this even important, you may ask? Now, let me explain. Because through sharding, the network is split into multiple sections known as shards. And workload on the network, they're distributed amongst these different shards, and as a result, becomes very scalable. So when I take a look at Zilliqa, it is something that I'm very excited for. Now, granted, some people may think that, okay, the Near protocol, which has an aspect of sharding technology, people may think, why is Near more popular than this? Even though, again, allegedly, this is the world's first sharding-based blockchain. Now, the way you take a look at it was that I just think probably, the hype somewhere along there is just, a lot better when it comes to Near, but I think it doesn't mean that Zilliqa, is bad, in my opinion. Now, I think Zilliqa is making the right moves, though. Now, let me explain why, because let's take a look at Zilliqa 2.0. Now, personally for me, I have to still wait for the long term in terms of how I can really evaluate that. But in my opinion, I still like Zilliqa 2.0 nonetheless because the way you take a look at it is Zilliqa 2.0 is EVM compatible. Now, EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, and Ethereum, despite some of its drawbacks, like for instance, we take a look at people complaining sometimes about Ethereum scalability, complaining about Ethereum's, gas fees. Even despite all that, it is still a very popular layer one blockchain, and it's many people's layer one blockchain that they think about in a lot of cases. So Ethereum is very popular. So when I take a look at Zilliqa 2.0, having that aspect of, I would say, EVM compatibility, that is something that I'm excited for. Not to mention, when it comes to Zilliqa 2.0, allegedly it's even been stated that it's now lightning fast, and the root mainnet shard will now feature average block times of as low as 2 seconds. So the way to take a look at it was that Zilliqa didn't really, I think, need to improve. I mean, I was bullish on it before I even heard about, Zilliqa 2.0 and whatnot, right? But then the way you take a look at it is that this is still a good step, I think, in the right direction because it showcases that the project is willing to evolve. It's willing to at least do something, right? Some other projects out there that I see, they're not really doing much. Now, that just gives me the vibe where the project kind of treats it as a part-time thing, at least the team. Now, maybe it is a part-time thing. I have no idea in some cases, but then at the same time, this feels a little bit more serious to me, the project, right? It feels like it's being taken seriously. It feels like it's being treated like a full-time thing, not as a project that sure we'll believe in it if it works, if it doesn't, whatever. It doesn't feel that it has that type of vibe to me at least. But even besides all that, when I take a look at Zilliqa, on its ecosystem, there are projects like, for instance, decentralized finance, NFTs, and gaming. Now, I get it. When it comes to NFTs, people might be thinking, oh, it's kind of over and all this type of stuff. Well, keep in mind, according to Grandview Research, both the decentralized finance and as well as the NFT market, each individually, they're expected to be worth over $200 billion by 2030. So I find that still kind of an impressive figure if it, let's say, maybe were to happen. Not to mention, if we take a look at, blockchain gaming, that market right there, yet again, according to Grandview Research, because, they like to predict things, but even besides that, that is predicted to reach over 300 billion again by 2030. So I do kind of find that, pretty fascinating nonetheless. And I think Zilliqa's ecosystem, even though it doesn't necessarily, I think, have the biggest out there, doesn't have kind of the popularity that some of its competitors may have, I still find it very interesting nonetheless. And not to mention, some people out there, they like to tell me, oh, Zil, again, Zilliqa's native token, they say, how can this gain popularity? Because they say that, take a look at how many competitors there are out there. Well, the way you take a look at it is this. Yes, there are more competitors when compared to a couple of years ago, when it comes to just projects in general, right? I'm not only saying Zilliqa. But even besides that, the way you take a look at it is that a lot of these type of projects that are popping up, a lot of them that I do see, they're meme coins. And I think the reason is because there's a bunch of launch pads and people just keep launching these random, projects that I think in a lot of cases may never gain that sort of attention or that kind of reputation. A lot of these projects maybe will never, in some cases, get listed on these major exchanges. Some of them never gain that popularity. So then, yes, there's more competitors, at least in my perspective, when compared to, let's say, back in 2021. But are there that many drastically good competitors, right? I feel like in terms of quality, yes, there's more competitors, but then it doesn't feel like there's such a drastic amount because even Zilliqa, it's still considered, in my opinion, to be a pretty popular project, even though it's not the most popular. But I'm saying it's at least, not like some very small market cap type of project. At least that's the way to take a look at it. Now, let's say ZIL were to go to the price of 25 cents, considering current circulating supply. Market cap at that point is around $5 billion, around an 18x from here. Now, when people say, oh, around an 18x, oh, who cares about that? Take a look at what this microcap could do and all this. I'm totally aware that hypothetically, there may be projects out there that are going to way outperform this. But the way you take a look at it is that Bitcoin going to 300 grand, that's slightly less than a 3x from here. So if someone said ZIL or Bitcoin, I'm going to have to say ZIL as of right now. I mean, even 12.5 cents is around a 9x from here, right? That's well beyond a 3x. That's the way you take a look at it, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything when it comes to ZIL. Not to mention, around a $5 billion market cap. I mean, we've seen, like, basically BNB 20x this, like 20 times this, right? Back in 2021 in terms of market cap. Not to mention, we've seen, like, something like Dogecoin, which exceeded this by over 75 billion in terms of market cap back in 2021. Take a look at Shiba Inu, which exceeded this market cap by over 30 billion back in 2021. So then the way you take a look at it is that this doesn't seem like that outlandish of a market cap to me. This is just my perspective. And I think as of right now, when I see how there's over 600 million crypto owners and compared to back in the peak of the 2021 bull run around 300 million crypto owners, this doesn't seem like too outlandish to me. Now, if ZIL needed like $100 billion in market cap or something like that to reach 25 cents, that's a totally different case. But then around a $5 billion market cap, it doesn't seem that outlandish, again, at least to me, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything when it comes to ZIL. I'll only speak on my behalf. Now, how soon? Some people may be wondering. Now, I do not have the capabilities to know what's going to happen in the future. However, at least I can take a look at the past. Now, usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. 18 months after the last Bitcoin halving event is around October this year. We're not in October yet. Now, some people may be thinking, oh, that's such a short time frame if, let's say, maybe that date even becomes correct because, of course, maybe it might be different because each cycle is going to be different. In my opinion, there's going to be different, circumstances, right? But even besides all that, the way you take a look at it is that take a look at how fast Bitcoin, which is literally the largest project out there within the space that we have right now, take a look at how fast that recovered and reached an all-time high in such a relatively short amount of time. So even if, let's say, it doesn't happen in October, let's say maybe December or early next year, if there is actually a fully fledged type of altcoin season, that doesn't feel like too short of a time span, in my opinion. I mean, we're not talking about gold or like the S&P 500. This is different. In this space, even again, we've seen Bitcoin, the largest project out there, again, within this space, that moved so quickly in such a relatively short amount of time, given its size. So when it comes to ZIL, which has a way lower market cap, it's an altcoin. We have seen what altcoins did back in 2021. So the way to take a look at it is that whenever that does decide to happen, I'm going to stay patient. I'm just holding and I'm just waiting. Literally, that's it. Some people like to ask me, why don't you pull up a price chart? Look, no matter what I do in the price chart, I draw a falling wedge pattern, I draw some random triangle, the market's not going to care. It's not going to listen to me, or should I say pay attention to what I have to do with that price chart. So instead of doing that, I'd rather focus on the fundamentals. I'd rather just take a look at what Zilliqa's doing. And I'm very excited. I'm also very excited for the future of what maybe Zilliqa 2.0 could bring. But again, only time will tell, and I'm staying patient. And that's pretty much it. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's only the Captain. I'll catch y'all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.